Hey there, I am Christie Ruffino, former broke single mom turned CEO of two six-figure businesses and best-selling author with 15 books. But it wasn't always like this. Not long ago, I was a hot mess. Yes, I did a lot of things right, but mostly I was throwing spaghetti on the wall to see what would stick. Fast forward past many failed attempts and a few incredible victories, I not only get to share what I've learned along the way, I get to bring together top influencers as they share their empowering stories, insider secrets, and valuable resources that can be used right now to step into your power. So, if you're an ambitious entrepreneur, or possibly one in the making, and you're looking to create a business and life that lights you up, well, then you're in the right place. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of the Mastery Unleashed podcast. I am Christie Ruffino, and today I have the pleasure of interviewing Marina Tudor. Welcome, Marina.
Hi, Chrissy. Good to see you again.
You too. I will tell you, you're one of the rock stars at our big launch on Friday. We just launched our most recent book, Genius Unleashed.
Yay.
And, we have a strategy that we do to get to number one, and that's great. And you came up with this excellent plan on LinkedIn, and everybody was super excited about it. And I really believe that that was a part of our success is your new strategy that we added to the layer. So great job.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. It was all about fun,
It
fun and
was.
group and bonding and connecting and, reactivating our networks and stuff. That was fun because it's still continuing. Like even now, it's still going on. The network literally responded and it was beautiful. The support was unbelievable.
I know. Yeah. Five days later, and you have people still reaching out and
Yes. Yes, definitely. It was definitely an experience. Thank you so much, Christy, for creating that.
oh my gosh, absolutely. And thank you for sharing your new strategy because we're going to have to adopt that going forward. But I will say though, it's been a pleasure working with you. You are always such a positive, smiling shine of light when we have our meetings with our author team. And I am really excited that you joined our project. And I
Ah,
can't wait for our audience today to learn a little bit about you. So your story is incredible. So why don't you go ahead and share a little bit about that so they know why you're so passionate about what you do right now.
I love unbending people. So some people call that healing, but it's really unbending. It's your inner architecture that's coming back into coherence. And I've done that with myself my whole life, like even with spatial disorientation and other things, other imbalances on my brain, epilepsy, autism, and other stuff. And so I've integrated that in my work. I've had fun. It's actually about fun in psychotherapy too, believe it or not. And in trauma and crisis, especially when you repair trauma without even talking about trauma. So I'm passionate. I love that. I used to say I'm in the business of changing lives. Now I, say it differently, recohering the architecture of the self. But yeah, um, fun, passionate, and just seeing people, go away, take from the process with a different perspective on life, with their identity aligned with, connected with the higher self, drawing from intuition, no longer running on these like survival scripts and stuff. Like it's just exhilarating.
Yeah, I want to like pause for a moment because there's a lot you shared there, but one thing that I want to make sure we don't just whiz by,
Mm-hmm.
and it's something that when we first talked the very first time, it really connected with me, and that is repairing trauma without talking about it.
Ah,
That's huge because
yes,
we
absolutely.
hear, oh, you've got to go to therapy, or why don't we go to therapy? I've been in therapy, and therapy is talking about it, which yes, we have to process. But I would never bought into the whole concept of talking about the same thing for years. When I got divorced, I wanted to talk about it, but then I wanted to move on. So
Yep.
I love what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I am really putting stuff on the map now, in connecting like neuroscience with psychotherapy and stuff, and with techniques that truly reprogram the brain, like EMDR.
Mhm.
And so let me tell you a little bit about that since you're asking. Thank you for noticing that. Yeah, that is one of the big green flags, like, lime green flags of
Yeah.
my work. Um, so I'm looking at the residual trauma themes that are in the field now, and I'm actually with mapping, with trauma themes mapping and scanning and stuff. I'm creating an evaluation of what those are. I'm clustering them up, and I'm working directly. These are diagnostic tools. I don't want to like use very clinical words and stuff, but I'm actually using a set of diagnostic tools, even for somebody who has never been in therapy,
Yeah.
even for somebody who has been in therapy. And I do have all the time clients telling me, like, for how many years they've been in therapy working on trauma. Talking about trauma, actually, studies are showing that it's re-traumatizing the person because it's bringing the same emotion back online. So it's deeper imprinting, cementing in that part of the brain that negative emotion associated with that. And in time, you can only imagine like 10,
Mm.
20 years later, but even 2, 3 years later, every single time you think about that, it's imprinting it even heavier. I'm not a fan of that by any means, but there's actually mechanisms from neuropsychology that I brought in my trauma work, which helps the person establish micro habits every day that are tailor cut to those particular trauma themes and clusters that I've assessed. And so by creating habits that work directly on those 5 minutes a day, several times a day, in 90 days or later, I'm actually, have outcomes that actually prove that at 90 days, you can be
Mm.
done with one or two trauma themes, and then you continue going. That this is an immense benefit from years, literally years. I've had people telling me I've been in therapy since 12, when, certain incidents, molestation or whatever happened, and she had been in therapy since then. Or I've been in therapy for 7, 8 years. Every time I talk about this, I cry. Of course, we actually have master therapists describing how they were doing certain techniques of exposure with trauma and stuff, and clients arriving prior to the appointment started feeling dizzy, sick, and like,
Oh, yeah.
turning away and unable to, like, because that room was so magnetized. You can imagine with the emotion of exposing themselves, like re-experiencing that. So yeah, I don't want to talk about it. I want to just reprogram it out of the fields and done. Like, have a fun life.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. Doesn't that sound heavily? If somebody's dealing with trauma and feels stuck and they know they need help, that sounds like bliss, right? To be able to get on the other side of it without keep having to relive all of the emotion of the
Yeah.
thing that's creating the issue in the first place.
And it's not just that.
Mhm.
Once you reprogram the trauma, you
Mhm.
function at your top potential. So I've
Mm.
seen stuff, creative stuff happening, book launch. I've seen changing the position in the company by creating, with influence, a position that was perfectly applied for the person. Like no longer feeling, that they are subject to authority,
Yeah.
feeling that they have agency, in changing that. A
Mm.
lot of things happen when trauma scripts don't run. Trauma scripts are, you can think about those in like simple beliefs. I'm responsible for everything.
Mm.
It's my fault. I don't deserve love. Um, I must be strong enough for everyone. These are trauma scripts, that run our activities.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, we dove in quickly and we're going to come back to this, but I want to jump back to your story because the reason why you kind of got in this field is because of your personal brain wiring. So talk a
Yeah.
little bit about that.
Yeah, yes. Um, so I was born with certain things. Some of them were partially rewired. Some of them I'm, still working with them on a daily basis. So some of the things are spatial disorientation, like left-right confusion,
Mm.
unsync, not coordination between my, left and right side of the body. Um, spatial, gauging objects or objects coming at you, like cars moving and stuff, like people moving. A few things like that. Tone deafness, definitely. And I had, epilepsy that started manifesting absences, when I was 3 years old. So there were certain things that were, not really preparing my system for optimal adaptation in the world. What happened is my parents put me in swimming when I was 3 to help with coordination. Parents, doctors, surgeons. So just to try to do something to help me with something. And I loved it. And as I was swimming, I changed my brain. I became a national champion at 10. And from that point on, I knew that everything is possible because I did feel how I'm behaving differently, how I'm feeling my body map differently, how, well, left and right, like to a certain extent, remained. I've experienced them later. And in my 30s, I decided to learn salsa and bachata on a moving treadmill. It took me about 15 years.
Wait, on
Um,
a moving treadmill.
well, first in the kitchen on 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 a stone in the kitchen, like
Uh-huh.
for years. But then I transitioned that to the treadmill for an extra like synchronization piece.
Okay.
And I'm just now I'm loving it, but I do still need like the treadmill's arms around it because my proprioceptive map is not, when I drive, for instance, like my life's anthem is the other left. Like,
Right.
from family members and stuff. So, but things are not perfect, but things are like, hugely different
Yeah.
from, the cards that life dealt me in the beginning,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Well, and so often, or well, so often in life, but the majority of the women that we work with or people that we work with that end up by sharing their stories in our books are people that realize their mess became their mission. And you had a mess, right? Like your body was not created in a way that everybody is typically created, and
Yeah.
you made it a mission to figure out how to rewire your brain and have your body work differently, better, right, than it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah, I had definitely had a different awareness.
Hmm.
I was born awake. I definitely had a different awareness of what's going on, and I could see my spirit filling my body, not my body being what runs my life.
Hmm.
So I think certain things were um, easier, from that regard, because it was a shame and it was a stigma. My
Hmm.
parents were very high on the totem pole. So, for me to be so messed up, it was a shame and it was a stigma in the society. I just never, defined it as such for myself. It was like I'm having fun with it to see what else my brain can do. It
Yeah.
was just a
Yeah.
different concept, from very young on. So
Yeah.
it's possible I actually learn about neuroplasticity without even like knowing the context of it. I remember one of my professors in in my first master's said, maybe you want to rewrite neuropsychology. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Because there's consciousness in absences of epilepsy, altered, but very clear consciousness. So there's parameters there. Yeah, we definitely can. My experience spells a lot of information that at that time was incomplete in the books. So I had
Yeah.
to go through this field to make this articulation for myself.
Yeah. So you mentioned first masters. So
Yeah.
you were born, you had surgeons, very high achieving parents, and a
Mhm.
whole family that was high achieving. And here you are, you come in and you feel kind of you're not, you don't necessarily fit into the expectations, but you made it a mission to not let that stop you. And
Yeah.
you learned how to swim, you learned how to start rewiring your brain. I may not be saying all these terms correctly, but the bottom line is you ended up by continuing on in that field
Yeah.
and getting a formal education and having a career to help other people in this area.
Yeah, there were more things that I wanted to understand, like autism traits, for instance. At that time, very few books about it and very little awareness in Europe, and not funding, not anything. So I could notice that I'm operating differently in terms of my emotions, in terms
Mm,
of understanding the world, a certain literalness, in terms of categorizing and classifying things and needing definitions for things. So very, very clear traits that, later in my first master's, I started having labels for that. And
Mm.
then in my second ones, I really deepened that. My life's work brought me from the bachelor's, working with people with autism, I realized that I understand them from the inside out. And so
Mm.
that converted in like a 27-year career. I loved it, like day in, day out across, Romania. Then I moved to Canada. Then I moved to US, then to Puerto Rico, then back in the US. So, and I worked with the most severe cases. That's really what draws me in. And it's not difficult for me. My
Mm.
senses,
Yeah.
react, right away. And I understand what is going on with them internally, which is great because they don't communicate. Like the expressive receptive component is, short circuited.
Yep. Yep. It's like your genius zone, right? You're able to, well, like
Yep.
when somebody doesn't have their vision, all of their other senses are heightened. And so
Yep.
maybe that's not the right analogy,
Yep.
but you basically have
Yep.
created this extra sensory, this extra supernatural power, not
Yep.
supernatural, this extra superpower that allows you to communicate because internally you're relating.
Yeah, and it is exactly like that. I do consider it a superpower, and you can imagine, by having this sense with people who cannot express exactly how they're feeling and cannot decode what you're
Mhm.
telling them,
Yep.
by having that for so many years, how that functioned in regular psychotherapy with regular clients, being able to intuit in the session based on, face movements and stuff,
Mhm.
how an emotion hit, how a memory hit, how the tone of the voice changed, because all of these are like autism traits. I map the world through calculations. My brain does it like without thinking about it, right? So when I talk to somebody, a lot of scans are going on, and I'm like picking up, that's why I created this thing like, let's work on trauma without talking about trauma. We've talked about it, but now enough. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So good, so good. All right. So you've gotten this journey this deck of cards that you were dealt,
yep.
and you've got this royal flush, and you're just doing all these amazing things out there to help other people. And now you are. Tell me a little bit about your business now. What is your current mission?
I'm also a psychotherapist. I continue to do that because that's where my heart is. I'm
Mm.
passionate about trauma and crisis. And I'm working with executive females, Gen X's I prefer because we are very driven. Like we we know what we want and we go
Yep,
for it.
yep.
And so I've created a very unique methodology where I am starting with assessing what is there left that is blocking their fields. So,
Mm.
trauma team seems a very intimidating word, but those are exactly, it's my fault. I'm responsible for everything. I don't deserve to, be loved. I must be strong for everyone. Like all of those are trauma themes. So I'm mapping those. I'm rewiring those. We're working on the roles that we're applying in society, such as like through manifested through archetypes,
Mm.
and stuff. We are correcting the body and brain information, process, which is called neurosomatic reprogramming. When you think about something and your body reacts out of control, like
Yeah.
an intense, like almost PTSD type of reaction, we are reprogramming that. We're creating protocols that the person can recohere in like 90 seconds, in instantly, like as the day is going, as the meeting is going on, as the intense situation is unfolding.
Hmm.
And that allows the person to respond from intuition, not from compression,
Okay.
you know.
Yeah.
I went through to two masters to understand what was going on with me, and this played a huge role in me. Even created a theory, the emotional reality theory, when I was in my first masters, that I operate with
Mm.
now.
Mm. Wow. Wow. Okay.
It's
Every
beautiful.
time I ask
The
a
mind
question,
is.
I think, oh, am I being smart enough when I answer this question? Because you get so technical and I'm just so
I apologize.
fascinated.
Oh,
No, no, not at all. Like I
okay.
am fascinated by it. I am so fascinated by it, but I'm hoping that I'm asking the right questions that are that I'm saying the right words. But okay, so this is what you're doing now, which is amazing. And I know we have audience out there right now who's listening and have gone through trauma and they're like, no more therapy. And so what can you share with them like, could you have, we like to be able to share a couple tips, three tips. What can
Mhm.
you share with them that they can start doing right now? I know you've got a great resource, a free
Mhm.
resource that you're going to
Yes,
share. We're going to talk about that in a moment. But
yes,
before the resource,
yeah.
anybody that's listening now, how could you advise them? What kind of wisdom can you share with them?
So one of the things would be always checking that there's alignment between what you know, at the level of the mind, what you feel at the heart level, you know, and for reference, I'm pointing to the heart chakra, and what you do, and I'm referring to the root chakra, you know, how
Mm,
you anchor that in action. More often than not, a trauma team installs in the body because there's one of these is out of place. We feel differently than what we do. We know something, but we do something else. And we have
I don't know
emotions
what
about
you're
how we
talking about. I have no idea what you're talking
yeah.
about.
So that's how a trauma theme usually comes up because there is a misalignment
Yeah.
in between these. And that creates this type of programming, those situations where we allow ourselves, you know, to function, inauthentic
Mm,
by doing something like that. There's pressure from work, there's pressure from the relationship. Sometimes that, you know, we live in a world that's restrictive and it has certain parameters and it forces us, another piece is why trauma themes appear because we
mm,
are wired for belonging, we are not
mm,
wired for truth.
right.
So because of all of these factors that are outside of us, it forces us to bend, you know in a different position. So every single decision that you make, um, pay attention to the difference or the alignment of
Mhm,
what you think, how you feel about things, and what you do about that. And try to find, approximations in how you word things out, in how you request something that you were owed without getting blowback from that situation
mm,
or boss or something, like staying as true to yourself as possible, considering that, this pressure is not meant to work for you, is meant to work for, the organization. It is meant to work against you, basically.
right.
Alignment would be one of the things. The second thing would be pay attention to what's hurting in your body, like quite
Mm,
honestly. There are things that are related with each part of the body, like the ones that I was mentioning before. Shoulders, are about responsibility, are about it's my fault. Upper back and shoulders. If you're having pain there, then some themes like I'm responsible for everything or it's my fault, I must carry
mm,
this, are
right.
related to that. Noticing and mapping that I must be strong for everyone, or if I drop this and if I can't do this, everything will fall apart.
Mm,
And that shows up with hyper reliance as well. Like, I can't rely on others. I can't
mm,
accept help. So there are certain things that are mapped to body parts, and when you're noticing one of your body parts reacting, one of your pain in a certain area, map that down. That's
mm.
insight.
Okay.
The body is going to respond, the biofield is going to respond. Obviously depending on your level of introspection and intuition, I map these things, so I make it a lot easier for people even when they're less self-attuned. um, Talking about, for instance, that just to give you some tips about the truth. My
Mm,
truth is not safe, so I can't speak, right? Or if I speak, I will be rejected. It's safer to not say anything. I must perform, not express. Those are some of the themes that are related to the throat, where we speak.
mm,
Um, in the chest, love is not safe. It's not safe to love. I must earn affection. So people with difficulties breathing, with cardiac difficulties and stuff, that organ is showing what has been residually accumulated, in that
mm,
area. I am too much or I'm not enough. My emotions are not welcome. All of those are themes that are related to the chest, you
mm.
know. And just
Yeah.
like that, every single body part. Do you want me to give a few more examples?
No, I think that's great. I think that's great. Yeah. And then
Awesome.
number three, do you have a third tip? You mentioned two.
Um,
That's okay if you don't.
yes. How do you, yes, pay attention if you're functioning from the vision or if you're
Okay.
functioning from safety. So the front body and the back body have different meaning. Um, when you operate from the front body, you operate with your vision and strategy and communication, and you're visible. Um,
Okay.
your back body represents the nervous system regulation and really the architecture, what's holding you, what's supporting you. If there's safety and emotional integration in the body, that part is going to feel relaxed. If there isn't, you're going to compress forward a lot. So you're going to push. You're coming out of alignment in your decisions when you're doing that. Makes sense?
Mm,
Like there
yeah.
is a transition, like that load that you're carrying, it's compressing your fields. You're not able to feel safe. So therefore, your vision doesn't flow freely. You're
Okay.
starting to pressure and compress in that direction. So push even where you see that it may not go well. So
Okay.
that's another like insight.
Okay. Great. Awesome. Wow. So much good stuff. So you have the recalibration starter kit. That is
Yeah.
the free resource that you created. You want to share, like, tell me what that's all about.
Yeah. Yes. Um, it's restoring the sovereignty of your fields.
Hmm.
It's a really good tool. It's a mini protocol. It's exactly like the things that I use in my work. And so it's helping you stabilize the environment that you're in without announcing it. By
Mm,
recohering your structures, all of your biofields, your toric field, your aura, everything is going to have um, the frequency that's stable. And whenever you are in an environment, you're going to notice people changing their posture towards you when you are in that place of stability. So that's what the this is bringing you to, helping you hold the authority without pushing it, without being loud for it. It contains some mapping because we have to, before we start um, working, we have to map the nervous system stabilization. We have to create a blueprint for reprogramming the trauma teams. We have to look at the identity. We have to figure out the identity coherence. And if by any chance, you're leaking out from that, which is what leads to burnout. So it has a lot of techniques. It's a diagnostic tool. I worded
wow.
it in a way that people can use it independently, but it's a diagnostic tool. My
Wow.
tools are just a bit more complete than this, but I wanted to provide something that people can use right away, and that doesn't sound as clinical or as complicated, you know.
Complicated.
So
Yeah.
it's mapping as well as calibration is a very complete protocol.
Wow. That's incredible that you're sharing that for free.
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
Okay.
in part of my mission to
Yeah.
and we're going to change the world. I don't want to see any more trauma. I don't want
Let's,
compassion to be something that's unique, like rare, like one of a kind. Like I want compassion to be the rule,
yes.
the
I like
function from
that.
alignment.
I like that. I definitely aligned with you the first time we had our conversation, and I'm really happy that we were able to work together in this book. And you're going to change a lot of lives by getting your story out there, sharing all of these incredible tools. So I'm just honored to be a part of that journey with you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm working on putting out a few more resources, like through you, through your vault,
Hmm.
to help people like use them for free and just change things in them, even for people who cannot afford, therapy or other processes that are very expensive. You
Yeah.
are awesome. I was so inspired, like working with you and what you do for women, for
Mm.
everybody. I was so inspired working with you. Thank you very
Aw.
much for having me in the group. You are amazing. And your story, that was the first thing that got me like I have to be, connected with this lady. We have
Yeah.
to do something together.
Well, we've got amazing women in this book. It's true, and I just love being a part of something bigger than myself. And every person that I can get out there and have them share their stories with more people, it's just creating a ripple effect, so we can have more love in the world and more healing and just shedding more light, which is important. We
And
need
it that's
that.
what, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We need that. Your books give permission, Christy.
Yes. Yeah.
Give
Oh, I like
permission
that.
to think about, an adversity is
Mhm.
beyond an adversity. It can be a transformation tool. Your books give permission to people.
Yes. Yes. So take a moment to connect with Marina, not only to get her resources, which will be linked in the show notes below, but reach out to her and have her send a autographed copy of her book,
Oh
Genius
yeah,
Unleashed, to you. I know we're in the
sure.
process of helping her put out another book shortly that will be on the bookshelves before, I would say, before the end of Q2 of this year. So we're going to get that out quickly because we don't want to delay in getting your resources out to more people. So super excited.
Thank you, thank you, thank you,
Yes.
thank you. I loved
And
it. Thank you very much for having me, Christy. I appreciate it.
oh, absolutely. And thank you all for being a part of our journey on the Mastery Unleashed podcast. If you are new, I hope you really enjoyed this episode. Feel free to subscribe to our channel and check out some of the other issues or some of the other episodes. We have an amazing lineup right now where we are featuring all of these authors. And then beyond that, where we always bring in amazing experts that share their stories and strategies to fuel your success. So we will see you next week on the next episode. So thank you all.
Awesome.
Thanks for listening to the Mastery Unleashed podcast, where we believe that everyone can have the business and life of their dreams by turning their mess into their greatest message and following their purpose to help the people who need their newfound wisdom and resources. To learn more, visit masteryunleashedpodcast.com. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review to this show.